So it was our second dive on the Spiegel Grove, and you two were off doing something, and I was diving with Luke. And as I was diving with him, we went down the gunnel of the boat, and there was this little room that I really wanted to look in. So I like wormed my way into this room, and I was looking at all the fish in the water column. And actually, what caught my attention was there were two little shrimps, and I love those little shrimps. So I was getting really close to the shrimp, and I was trying to like stick my finger to get them to like kiss my finger and do all the cleaning on my fingernail. And I just feel an arm reach over and grab me and yank me out of the hole. And I was like, what is going on? And then Luke swims into the hole. And I'm like, this guy is taking my spot looking at my shrimp, and I don't get to have a good dive anymore. And then we get up to the surface and get on the boat, and he's like, did you see that eel? The one that you were about to lay flat on top of while you were going into the room? And I was like, no, I didn't see an eel at all. And he was like, well, I'm glad I saved your life. And I was like, yeah, sure, bud. You saved my life. Whatever you say.
That's wild. So, Danny,
It
do
was
you want to
fun.
tell our listeners what the Spiegel Grove is for those of them who do not know?
So according to Wikipedia, to a diver, the Spiegel Grove is 450 feet long. To other people or other animals, it's I guess a different length, but that's what they say. It's the largest shipwreck ever intentionally sunk for an artificial reef, and it's in Key Largo, Florida. We've been the last 3 years, me and Shannon, and one of our favorite dive sites down in Key Largo.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun this past January together. Danny, can you elaborate on the diver length versus other animal length? Because you have my interest peaked.
Well, we were reading the Wikipedia article on my first trip down there, and it says specifically the Spiegel Grove to a diver is 450 feet long, or maybe a different length. I might not be remembering the length correctly, but that to a diver part is kind of interesting because I don't know what they mean by that either.
Hmm. All right. Well, the more you know, I guess, right?
For
Yeah.
sure, for
The
sure.
sharks over exaggerate the length, I guess. So you are listening to Three Broke Divers. This is a podcast that we are talking about all things scuba, from gear and training to wrecks and wild stories, and there's no topic that's off limits. And very important to note, though, while some of us are dive professionals or working towards being dive professionals, this is a podcast talking about our specific experiences and our education and what we've been doing with NAUI and with all the different organizations we work with. It is not to be taken as a training podcast or as an advice podcast or as any sort of professional experience, advice, whatever podcast. This is simply our experience and our time diving and what we do and how we try to dive and make it accessible for people who maybe aren't rolling in the dough.
Our mission is to make diving more accessible, relatable, and fun for everyone.
Ooh.
That sounds fun. I'm down for that.
I am Shannon. I am a current active status NAUI instructor. I have been diving since October 31st of 2018 is when I got certified. I'm a Halloween diver, and I spend every Halloween diving if I can, just as a fun little thing. Um, my goals moving forward as a diver, I hope to get a little bit more into the technical realm and try to learn more about tech diving and different types of gear setup, and I would like to learn a lot more about gear than I know right now. I also potentially down the line, I don't know how soon, but eventually would like to be an instructor trainer or something similar to that. Continue my education. I don't know if I've even told you to that, but surprise! I would love to at some point. Um, a fun fact about me is that I am an underwater archaeologist in my free time, in my spare time when I'm not teaching diving or doing land archaeology. I'm an underwater archaeologist. I love diving. I really love diving. Because I just enjoy being close to nature and to see all the fish, and it's a calm and peaceful environment where I just get to kind of relax and float and drift and not think about anything. It's just me and the fishies that I wave to every single time that I see them.
I
Um,
can attest to that. She does wave at the fishies.
I do. I wave to every single fish.
Every single
I
one.
clap for my student. Oh yeah. Clap for my students, wave to my fish, and that's how I dive. Yeah, I'm training as a scientific diver, and that's one of the cool, unique perspectives that I bring to the table. So I have that background. I'm an underwater archaeologist, and I have that kind of landscape and that background to bring to this here podcast.
My name's Danny. I also go by the underwater mononym Reef, and I'm a NAUI dive master and an instructor in training. Been diving about 3 years. Don't remember the exact date. Could find it in my log, but yeah, I've been diving for a couple years now, and almost once a month, every month that I can, we're out there, and yeah, love diving, and really love how for an hour or more, I don't have to talk to people.
So, Danny, what's your oh shoot moment while diving?
Probably on this last Key Largo trip in January when I jumped in and all of a sudden felt all this water coming in the sleeve of my dry suit and got on the boat, poured all kinds of water out of my dry suit, found that the dump valve wasn't screwed down all the way, and thought I was going to be all clear. But day two, jump in, oh snap, more water's coming in my sleeves. Turns out holes in each of my wrist seals that I didn't know about because I am always diving with dry gloves, and had to go all up and down three three different keys, 2 hours or so, and finally on the last dive shop we found, they had the wrist seals I needed, and I was dry as something that is dry.
It's the perks and the pains of diving with a dry suit because you get to stay dry, but then when you don't stay dry, it is a bad day of diving. Um, that is a great oh shoot dive moment. I'm sorry that
Hmm.
you had to do that. It was painful for us to witness as well.
It
Um,
was.
And now I have even more practice replacing wrist seals on my dry suit. So
you know,
Silver lining. There's
learning
always
moment,
something good. Yeah.
learning moment. My name is Matt. I am an advanced snorkeler, as our favorite dive instructor likes to say. Um, no, I am the least experienced of this little trio of talkers. I will say, though, I think I've gotten my certifications from the most places out of all of you. I started
probably.
out getting my open water as through Patty, and then did my advanced actually as Shannon's student with Nowie. And then when I needed to go get my nitrox, I said, you know what, let's just tag on another certification brand and did that through SDI. So I've dabbled in pretty much all of the training companies at this point. So I guess that's fun fact, right? Um, so my background, I work at a college and I work in risk management and emergency management for the college. So I am always looking through the lens of safety. And I always tell people when they ask me about my diving experience, I say I am the worst scuba diver there is, but the safest scuba diver there is. And I think that that's something that I appreciate that I bring to the group and the table is that I am always trying to keep diving as safe as possible for me and my buddy or my buddy group. I'm going to use that as my fun fact. And then why love scuba diving, I think that kind of like Shannon and Danny have both alluded to, is like for the time that we're underwater, it's just you are able to take a step away from the busyness of your everyday life and really just focus in on something that's beautiful. And for me, that's the magic of scuba diving. When I'm underwater, I get to silence all of the other conversations that are in my going on in my head and just focus on the beauty that is around me. Um, so that's me in a nutshell. I'm a dive master in training and training and training and training. So I am a dive master intern at my local scuba shop, and they've taken me under their wing and are extending their tutelage to make me a great dive master, hopefully in the near future. So keep an eye out on that. listeners, track my
Yeah.
training progress. Um, so why don't we dive right in? No pun intended. What should we expect from this podcast? Obviously, this is episode number one. So Shannon, what are some of the things we're going to get into?
Yeah. So we're getting intros out of the way. This is, bare bones. We are here. Here's who we are. Here's why we think we're qualified if we are to do this. We're gonna do it anyways, even if we're not. So listen, please. We're gonna talk about finding gear on a budget because you want to make sure that you get gear that isn't gonna cost an arm and a leg, but is also going to be safe and meet all the requirements that you need to scuba dive safely. We're gonna talk about dive training and leadership paths, dive safety and risk management. We're going to talk all about underwater stories and archaeology, which, my specialty, my purview. And we're going to talk a little bit about travel tips, bucket list dives, and community aspects of diving. And then we'll hopefully have some guest interviews, bring in some instructors, some dive shop owners, if we can find, a wide range of people who can pull into this podcast to talk about their experiences in diving. And then we'll have listener Q&As. So that's where you all come in and share your stories about your fun dives, your interesting experiences, some sort of community shout out. And we're going to have all sorts of things, just all things diving, all things that we love to talk about.
I'm so excited to take this adventure with two of my best friends to talk about the thing that we love together and to share it with our listeners. So this is the fun segment, y'all. We got the intros out of the way. We told you what we're going to talk about. In today's segment, our main segment, as it were, is we're going to do a brutally honest dive confessions. So we're going to go through the three of us, and we're going to share either a funny, embarrassing, or sketchy dive story because we want to keep it real.
We'll hop right back to one of our Key Largo trips that we were all on recently. Um, my students, my lovely, lovely students, great, great people. One of them taught me the symbol for peeing underwater. For those who don't know, or peeing in general, I guess not necessarily underwater, but we're using it underwater. For those who don't know, I'm going to try my best to describe it. Your thumb is going to be pointing down to your head, your fingers are out and your pinky is up. So you're doing like a shaka, like a tubular radical kind of sign, but it's upside down, thumb facing towards the head, pinky up to the ceiling. And then you shake it, and that's peeing underwater. So of course, the second I knew that that was that symbol, I would swim up to every student any given moment and just go, I'm peeing, I'm going. And I wasn't lying, is the best part about it, is that I was going constantly underwater.
So, so Shannon, I can't help but relating to that story. As somebody who likes to dive with you, I can attest to the fact that Shannon does this symbol quite often. And to add to your embarrassing story, Shannon and I like to add a little moment where we do the flush, which to try to describe it, you use both hands and pull on the front of your wetsuit at the neck to like flush water into the wetsuit to, get the pee out of your wetsuit. And Shannon and I were in the same kind of buddy group on the trip, and she went to flush and accidentally ripped her necklace right off of her neck. And I felt so bad for her in the moment because that day it seemed like a lot of stuff was just not going our way. Um, yeah,
That day was not ideal, but looking back at it, it's hilarious. I
we
really,
laugh about
with
it
my
now.
whole heart, pulled my necklace away from my neck and went, oh, uh-oh. But
Danny, do you have a fun, embarrassing, funny, or sketchy dive story for us?
Yeah, I think our listeners are going to get a twofer tonight because I sort of already shared the one about my dry suit leaking. I guess I could have actually peed in it that day because I was already wet, but I'll add another one. It's starting to sound like we've only been on one Key Largo trip because this story is coming from that same trip. But whichever day it was, like the third day of the week, maybe we're down there, and I'm saying, all right, today, I'm bringing out the doubles. I'm bringing out my twin set, and I'm on the boat, the coolest dive master Key Largo's ever seen, rolling up to Horizon Divers in my doubles, and I jump in with no fins. And then The dive master hands them to me. Somehow I manage to drop one of them, and I watch as it sinks all the way down to the bottom of the reef. And one of our students saves the day, brings me my fin, and at the end of the trip, they're talking about, did you jump in with no fins? Yep, yes I did, and you saved the day. So shout out to our wonderful students who teach us so many things, dive signals and rescue stranded dive gear, all sorts of stuff.
We were just talking the other night about what kind of fee you should charge for having to retrieve somebody's dive gear on a dive. So if our listeners are out there, what do you charge for a fee if you have to recover something on a dive? Is it a six pack of your local soda pop, or is it just bragging rights that you were the hero for the day? Throw that in the comments below. We'd love to know what you charge to retrieve a piece of gear.
Nice crisp high five.
Nice, Chris. High five.
That's all we can
Um,
afford. We're three broke divers.
correct. I can't afford to buy you anything. So I'm gonna go with a sketchy story actually. Unlike the two other stories, I am gonna share about a different shipwreck. We had the opportunity to dive the Dwayne, which is a another wreck down in Key Largo, Florida. Um, and we went down on the Dwayne, and this was actually my first real deep dive. I think it was, what was it? Right around 110, 120 feet,
Mm.
that range. Um, so this was a new experience for me. I was super excited. The water was quite rough that day. And I started my dive by hopping on in, immediately lost my dive knife because it got caught on some rope because the waves took us the wrong direction. So I was off to a great start, but descended down the line, was doing great. I was super lucky to have Danny as my buddy that day. So I felt super comfortable being with a dive master, even though he wasn't really diving with me in that capacity. We were just buddies, but I did feel safe knowing that I was with somebody who had some leadership under his belt. We got down there, we're swimming around, checking out the Dwayne, and all of the sudden, I just see this barracuda. And in my head, I don't think I was actually narked, but I felt like the barracuda was like, I'm gonna eat you. And it wasn't actually talking to me. This was all made up in my head. But I got like pretty spooked. I was like, this barracuda wants to eat me. So I just looked at my buddy and I was like, can we swim away from this barracuda, please? And we did, and it was fine. The barracuda stayed exactly where it was. It never wanted to eat me. But in that moment, it felt pretty sketchy. But they're not interested in us because we're loud and make noise and have metal tanks strapped to our backs. But in that moment, definitely was feeling pretty spooked. And then got back up to the surface, and everyone made fun of me for being spooked. Danny didn't, but everybody else on the boat
Bar
did.
Barracuda, like they feel like the scariest not scary fish because they are just so intimidating looking. They're just mouth open, those sharp dagger of a teeth like just hanging out there. But then like they really, like you said, they just don't want anything to do with you. They're minding their own business. They're looking for fish to eat and they're just like, go away with you with your little bubble blower. Go get out of here. We don't want you.
Exactly. So yeah, that was my sketchy dive story. Not super sketchy,
Lovely.
more spooky.
Yeah.
So community shout out. We've talked a lot about Key Largo, Florida today. So we're gonna shout out Horizon Divers. They are a dive charter and dive training shop down in Key Largo, Florida. I'm not gonna say that they're the best in Key Largo, Florida, but they're the only charter I am interested in diving with in Key Largo, Florida.
They're great.
Um, no, all joking aside, they have a great company. They have three different charter boats that they put out, I think, almost every day year round. If there's water in the ocean, they're willing to go diving. So
Mhm.
if you were heading down to the Keys, consider checking out Horizon Divers for your next dive adventure in Key Largo.
Yeah.
They're also the only dive shop in any of the neighboring keys to have replacement wrist seals for dry suits.
There you go.
So they came in clutch twice for
Yeah.
us.
And
uh,
they also just have such personable, great staff.
yeah.
They're funny, they're kind, they're so willing to help at any moment. They're just all around have been a pleasant experience.
Um, Shannon, do we want to hear from our listeners?
I think we do want to hear from our listeners. And so much so that we'd actually love for you to write into us at threebrokedivers@gmail.com and
That is
submit
our
your
email
own.
address.
Yeah.
Just want to thank our listeners for tuning in for episode one. Just a reminder, subscribe, rate, share this podcast. And until next time, dive safe and don't forget to log it.